Okay, you've all been very patient. We're going to start on time. Good evening, and thank you for accepting our invitation to attend tonight's meeting. We have 350 of you, or just about 350 of you, attending in person, and also 230 attending via webinar. So welcome to you all. Before we begin, let me introduce today's panel. ASPPPO President Charlie Miner, CSA Board Chairman Mark Griffith, Sea Pines Resort President Steve Birdwell, Sea Pines Resort Director of Resort Development Cliff McMacken. I'm Barry Barth. I'm a Sea Pines homeowner and an ASPPPO and CSA board member, and I'll be serving as tonight's moderator. This is the second of two town meetings planned for today. We had a big crowd this morning, both here and then also on the webinar too. Because property owner interest exceeded our seating capacity at the Sea Pines Community Center, we needed to seek an alternative site for today's meetings. We thank the Sea Pines Country Club for adjusting their schedule to accommodate us today, and the members too. We're currently exploring dates and locations for future gatherings so that property owners will have an opportunity to learn the facts about this upcoming referendum vote planned for early fall. So how did we get where we are today? I'm going to throw it to Charlie Miner, and he'll give us an update.
Of course, the first test is to avoid falling off the back of the podium. As you no doubt know, all property owners in Sea Pines are subject to a complex set of rules we call the covenants. You agree to them when you purchase your property, and over the years they've been amended several times and were augmented by rulings of the bankruptcy court. So we're here tonight to talk about changing parts of the covenants. 2 years ago, Sea Pines Resort approached us with a request to add rooms to the inn at Harbortown. That is because there is a settlement agreement in Beaufort County Court dated February 1984, 33 years ago, which limited the rooms at Harbortown to 60. ASPPPO was the plaintiff in that action and the beneficiary of the settlement. That settlement was also incorporated into the covenants. So to add rooms at the inn, two things have to happen. ASPPPO needs to approve amending the settlement agreement. The settlement agreement remains, but it would be amended to increase the number of rooms. And the residential property owners need to pass a referendum approving the change. By covenant, a referendum requires 75% plus one margin of those voting. Over 2 years ago, a committee of residents was formed to conduct the discussions. I was president of ASPPPO and I led that group. I was joined by Mark Griffith, chairman of CSA, Rich Spear, and Dan Westerbeck. We first met with a group of residents and community leaders to develop a list of issues. We got a long list, as Cliff will recall. I think it was 5 pages. And it was a bit of a jumble, and a lot of ideas and opinions. But over time, and it's been 2 years now, a little over 2 years, it's been boiled down to a fairly concise list. As we did that, we also retained qualified independent counsel to advise us and to research the sometimes confusing covenants and court proceedings. As we progressed, each issue was thoroughly researched, and in some cases, specialized consultants were brought in for advice. To give you an idea of the magnitude of this task, in addition to being 2 years in doing, we spent roughly $150,000 in well over a year coming to answers on the various issues. At times, our discussions were contentious and frustrating, but in the end, we came to a tentative agreement subject to both board and community approval. The board has yet to vote on it, and so do you. It's not a perfect agreement. And in fact, we've made several changes since we first received public input. We also made this proposal public before all the details were finalized. We really had to do that because of the timetable we're on, and because when it was presented to the ASPPPO board, which is a public forum, everybody began to get the buzz of what was going on. Because not all the details were finalized, we may not have final answers for all your questions. We're working to bring that to closure. This is an open meeting today to discuss those things and understand them, and your comments today will help us achieve that. I believe that we are at a critical turning point in our community. Soon we will submit a referendum to you for your approval. A positive vote will take us in a direction which we're going to outline in the presentation today. In any case, our future here will change. That should come as no surprise to anyone. We are an aging community in more ways than one, and change is inevitable. It's also much needed. Riverstone, the owner of Sea Pines Resort, is proposing a major investment inside the gates, perhaps as much as $100 million. We believe that this investment and the proposed referendum have major benefits for all of us and will help us head in a positive direction. That will be for you to decide. Barry?
Doing a little two-step up here, folks. Thanks, Charlie. While issues can be complex, they become even more complicated when people discuss the latest rumor heard on a golf course or in the neighborhood. Recently, CSA created what we call a confirmation station. It's a link on our website that allows any property owner the opportunity to ask questions on any rumor or supposed fact that they've heard from blogs or neighbors. We hope you will use seapinesliving.com as your source for verification. We're here this evening to help you better understand the referendum and all it has to offer everyone. We are not asking for your support today. We're asking for your attention so you can make a better decision to support or reject this referendum offer. Although rumors and false interpretations have been around for some time, there are three primary reasons for today's meeting. One, to help everyone better understand the actual issues involved. Two, to help everyone understand the actual facts property owners and the Sea Pines community will receive with the successful passage of the referendum. To give all of you the opportunity to ask your questions, receive truthful answers, and then decide if you are supportive of this referendum. Although you're here, it's important to understand there are some property owners who are unaware of any issue revolving around this hotel agreement or these covenant changes. By your attendance tonight, both here and also on the webinar, you can help us spread the word to your neighbors living near and far. We know many residents are appreciative of the resort's $85 million Sea Pines investments made to our community over the last 4 years. These dollars have significantly added to the appearance and appeal of our community. We realize there are some property owners who are opposed to this referendum. While everyone has the right to vote for or against this referendum, we're simply asking minds to be made up when details are brought forward and not before the facts are presented to the voters. In order for this referendum to pass, as Charlie said, there will need to be a yes vote from 75% plus 1 of the votes cast in order to approve the requested covenant changes. Okay, here's how we're going to make this work this evening. First, Steve and Cliff will be taking you through the resort's tentative plans for the additions to the Inn at Harbortown. Note that I said tentative plans because many of the details are still being finalized. What they'll be presenting today are conceptual plans and drawings in order for you to get a feel for the proposed changes, as well as a visionary glimpse of what this addition could look like when you're showing it off to your relatives and friends who come to visit you. We will then review the term points with input from the panel. Once those discussions have been concluded, we'll open the floor for property owner questions. We will be taking questions from those attending in person from 2 microphones located near the front of the room. Microphone 1 over on that side, microphone 2 over on this side. For those attending via the webinar, questions will be taken online using the chat feature, and Amanda will be overseeing that. We will address as many questions as we can in the 2-hour time limit time frame. Only when you've heard the presentation, only when you've had the ability to receive answers to your questions, will you have enough input as to the level of your support going forward. Steve and Cliff, you want to take over now?
Very good. Well, good evening, everyone. Is the mic on? Is the mic on? Yeah? Okay. Very good. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving up your Tuesday night to attend tonight, and thank you for your interest in the future of Sea Pines Resort and Sea Pines. This is truly an exciting time in Sea Pines. As you know, we've spent the last 4 to 5 years improving some assets that desperately needed improvement. And I'll review those improvements here in just a few minutes. And now we have a proposal to expand the inn, to create a luxury property in Harbor Town that will help propel us into the future. The proposal is very straightforward. We want to expand the Inn and Club at Harbor Town to add 90 new guest rooms and to create a truly remarkable 5-star, 5-diamond new property in Harbor Town, which will attract the affluent traveler to Sea Pines, the travelers who can then become the next group of property owners within Sea Pines. And we're offering a great package of benefits to the community. And by improving the inn and obtaining the 5-star designation, we will join a very exclusive group of high-end communities like Sea Island, Pinehurst, and Pebble Beach. So just to recap the investments that we've made to date, we've spent, as Barry mentioned, about $86 million on recent investments. Those investments have included the 2 award-winning clubhouses, one at Harbor Town, the other at the Plantation Golf Club. We've improved all 3 of the resort golf courses, and of course our new Sea Pines Beach Club. These projects were completed and funded 100% by Sea Pines Resort, and they are being enjoyed daily by property owners and guests. Maybe the next slide, Amanda. Yeah. And we're committed to operating Sea Pines Resort as one of the country's leading residential and resort communities. We're very fortunate to have received many accolades and awards from some of the top resort publications, including Golf Magazine, Golf Digest, Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast Traveler, Forbes Travel Guide, AAA, and many more. And we want to continue these efforts into the future. The inn improvements are proposed in a campus setting of small, very upscale buildings designed to fit within the Sea Pines Resort architecture. The existing inn will remain, and the interior will be renovated to match the new buildings. We plan to add a new spa and fitness component, both of which will be open and available to property owners. We'll be adding a new pool to the inn and expanded food and beverage, creating a luxurious new property to meet all the 5-star standards from Forbes and AAA. Now Cliff is going to review our exciting plans with you.
I'm going to stand up so I can use my pointer here to identify things on the screen. We can move to the next plan. So Steve mentioned our campus setting really embraces the village concept. So rather than building one large building, we have plans to build multiple smaller scale buildings. And this plan that we're looking at is a massing study that shows how the buildings would fit into the Harbor Town setting. Just to get your bearings, this is Lighthouse Road as it continues around to the lighthouse, and then Lighthouse Lane leads over to Harbor Town Clubhouse. The existing inn is shown here at the bottom of the page. You can flip to the next one. Okay. This next slide is a plan view, and as we've mentioned, the plan to build the additional 90 rooms will be made up of using the existing inn, which is 60 rooms. There's a building just next to it that would be about 40 rooms, and then a building across from the existing inn that would make up about 50 rooms. In addition to the guest room buildings, we would build a spa and fitness building on the campus that you can see here. So one thing you notice when you look at this plan is that it's sort of a patch quilt of buildings, but also green spaces and recreational spaces with pools and tennis as well. One thing you can also notice in this plan is the parking area. So, well, some of you heard this statement before, but we always joke in our planning sessions that every planning session ends with a discussion about parking, and it's true. I mean, we spend probably more time talking about that than anything. In this plan, we would be, by reconfiguring this parcel, we're not only going to be providing enough parking for all of the new buildings that we're building and the new uses, with underground parking that would be situated beneath these buildings, but we're also going to be increasing the amount of parking by an additional 100 spaces. So anytime we turn a shovel, we're thinking of how can we provide more parking. In this plan as well, you can see across the street is where the new pool would be located. So it's the program is that it would be built to meet the needs and expectations of today's five-star resort communities. So that's really the basis of that plan. We would potentially need to adjust some of the existing buildings, such as the bakery, but it was a question earlier today, the bakery would not be, would remain. We love the bakery, as well as the other buildings in the area. So what's it going to look like? This view is, as it would be the new first impression. So as you would enter the site and drive around and lead right up to the new arrival component, this arrival courtyard would connect these new lodging buildings. And to get your bearings, what's on the right would be the existing inn's porte-cochere. We could reconfigure that so that it would match with the new architecture. But as you can see, that first impression, you know, it's a new look. It's a study that we did on the residential styles. We looked at many resorts around the world, but many of the architectural flavors were chosen from right here in our area between Savannah and Charleston. Lots of courtyards. The scale of these buildings is residential in size as well. A lot of residential components. The massing is minor, and it also allows for view shots between buildings so that you get glimpses of green spaces and not just a big wall. So, this image is from the 50 Key building that's across from the existing inn. And it looks out over some of this patch quilt of green spaces that we've talked about. So you can also see beyond the spa and fitness building into a pool area that would be built for the hotel as well. And this third image is of the new resort pool. So as you can see, we would utilize a lot of the existing tree canopy to keep the space green and in keeping with Sea Pines traditions, as well as create pods of areas that could be used for more intimate collections of people. So the access for the resort pool would be for resort guests as well as property owners. So we would want to work on understanding what a membership program would be and offer as many memberships as we possibly could for property owners. Again, it's across the street from the existing inn. And you can go to the next slide. I've hit a couple of these topics here, across the street from the existing inn. And $70 to $100 million of investment is what's planned in this next phase. And it's an investment made by the Sea Pines Resort at no cost to Sea Pines residents. So that was a little bit about the first phase. This next phase, it's going to give us an opportunity to really look at some of the more public areas in Harbor Town. One of the things is just a Harbor Town retail refresh. Taking a look at walkways, sitting areas, circulation areas, etc. So we want to take a chance to really improve those and breathe some new life into that retail component. Parking issues, we're, as I said, always talking about solutions for parking. How do we take our existing parking areas and maximize those to get the most amount of spaces out of them? And then new restaurants and shopping. We want to keep it, Harbor Town in its traditions been a vibrant retail component, and we want to keep moving that ball forward. We've taken some surveys in the past, and then I will certainly be taking more in the future, but understanding, what do people want? Do we want more places to eat? Do we want new and different shops? So obviously, the big question is the quarter deck. So we're currently also, understanding what is the future of that. How do we breathe more life into that element as well? So these resort, the intentions of this phase and the next phase are that these resort facilities, truly deliver on the original vision of Charles Frazier, of being one of the finest destinations, resort communities in the South. Okay. This is an additional element. What is the impact of adding a five-star hotel to a resort community? We engaged a leading national research firm, Primar, Inc., who specializes in resort communities and the real estate values in those communities. And the study was done by taking some competitors, so some of which Steve mentioned earlier, but this study was focused on Sea Island, Reynolds Plantation, and Kiowa Island Golf Resort. And it looked at the 5 years before the five-star hotel was installed in each one of those communities, and then also the real estate values in the 5 years following the installation of those hotels. And they all saw varying degrees of increases in real estate volume, but one that stood out, and I think it was just a great time for the economy, but Kiowa saw a 200% increase for every year for 5 years following the installation of the sanctuary. We all know that was an investment made by the Riverstone Group. How that translates to Sea Pines with today's economic conditions and history, real estate history, is that Primar projected that we would see a 25 to 30% average increase in annual sales volume. So the volume is made up of number of transactions as well as average cost increase. So both would rise. We asked further, how much of that increase is made up of average average value increase, average cost, the average sale price of properties, and 40 to 50% increase in average sale price was what is expected. So the average sale prices of homes is expected to increase 8 to 10% per year for the first 5 years after the installation of the resort. So it's pretty impactful. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve for some additional comments.
Yeah, just before we move on to the terms, I wanted to comment on tennis. Tennis has been and continues to be and will continue to be very important activity in Sea Pines. As you can see from the plans, the racket club is going to need to be relocated. And we're currently reviewing several options as to where the tennis club could be relocated. One option is using a portion of Lawton Stables. We would intend to use 7 to 8 acres of Lawton Stables out of the 21 acres that's there at Lawton. And we would continue to offer the equestrian, the pony rides and the trail rides and all those things. It'd be our intention to continue to offer those activities. But at the same time, adding this new, very nice tennis club probably about 16 courts there to maintain our relationship with Smith Stearns and Stan Smith. And Stan has been involved in our discussions. He's brought in USTA consultants who also have been working with us. And we hope to have an answer soon. And as I stated earlier, we're committed to tennis, and it's a very important activity. And we plan to continue to offer tennis to property owners as well.
Steve, just a follow-up to that, I noticed this morning you kind of described where the tennis facility would be if you were walking into Lawton Stables. Maybe you could go through that again to show basically on the right-hand side would be the amenities you talked about.
Basically the tennis facility would fit on the pastures that are in front of the barn. So they'd be along Greenwood Drive in the main open fields that are already cleared. And then the equestrian would continue to happen in the barns and then the stalls that are already there on the right-hand side of the property. So we believe that there's still a lot of logistics to work out, but we believe we can offer equestrian there and fit in a really nice tennis facility.
Thanks, Steve. So we're going to move right into the term sheet right now, and our panel will walk us through that. The Sea Pines Resort would be granted the right to add 90 rooms to the hotel. Now, that's an issue that was discussed earlier, so we can just kind of cruise through that. The Sea Pines Resort will increase their own assessment by 50%, resulting in an estimated $2.3 million in assessments paid to CSA over the next 5 years versus $1,063,000 over the past 5 years. Mark, you might want to address what impact that has on CSA's budget.
Yes, I have said at annual meetings and board meetings over these past years that CSA is currently barely funding its current operational needs. In each of the last 2 years, we've dipped into reserves to the tune of about $500,000 to $700,000. It's important. We felt it was important that the resort, and this gives us an opportunity to extract a little bit of additional revenue, to extract some revenue from the resort, and we're going to talk further about some other areas where revenue can be generated. But for those of you who have been to some recent board meetings, we've got a very aged infrastructure. We've just completed an engineering study that says we should be spending upwards of $1.5 million a year underground. We don't have $1.5 million additionally to spend anywhere, let alone underground. But that is a very serious issue in terms of flooding. It's stormwater related. And this goes a long way, as will some of the other things that we talk about in this term sheet, to begin to provide the additional revenue that is needed to meet some of these obligations. I've also said in the past that we'll ultimately come back to the residents, so this will mitigate to some extent what do we need to come back to the residents to ask for to meet the obligations that we have going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Sea Pines Resort will allow residents to initiate future referendums on community issues which do not have a material impact on the resort. Charlie, can you handle that, please?
Yeah, I think the popular subject for that would be balance of power, and that's how it's been framed. And as I said when I started out, we're all subject to the covenants. The covenants were written to protect the three basic property interests in Sea Pines: the residents, the resort, and the commercial interests. In order to change a covenant, it requires a 75% vote of you, the residential property owners. So the way that shakes out is that the resort has no ability to change a covenant. They have to seek approval of the residential property owners to do that. The residential property owners don't have the right to change a covenant without the approval of the resort. The resort, having invested perhaps $100 million with the original purchase and the additional expenditures, needs to be able to protect their investment. So it's a reasonable right that those can share back and forth. What we've asked for here is the ability to go forward with a number of things that we need to do in terms of referendums to clean up, to do the housekeeping. When Mark and I began here about 4 years ago, we continued to find all sorts of issues that really needed to be addressed. Some of them we don't have the ability to address because of the covenants. So this allows us to go forward with those covenant changes which are directly related to property owners and really don't affect the resort one way or another. So that's the purpose for that one.
And let me give you an example of what that might be. Hopefully not too many of us, but some of us have neighbors or estates probably that are not taking proper care of homes or vacant lots. We can send letters, but we really don't have any teeth. We have no way to impose any fines. We have no way to go in and clean up and assess and put a lien on the properties. So that has no impact on the resort. Actually, it does have a positive impact on the resort because they want to be 5-star, 5-diamond. We can't have some of these stressed properties around. That's an example of a type of referendum item that the property owners could make a decision to put in place some teeth that there's no reason the resort shouldn't support.
Okay, thank you. Our next is the Sea Pines Resort will reimburse ASPPPO for its associated expenses in the amount of $150,000. Charlie, will you address the issue of the
I should ask Cliff to address that because that was a battle at the end, but they were kind enough to agree to cover our cost. At $35 a member per year, we're not the richest organization in the world, and so the money that we spent on researching this project and coming to the conclusions we did was a significant burden on our treasury, and we are pleased that Matt Goodwin and that Steve agreed to make us whole on that.
Next, Amanda. Okay. The Sea Pines Resort will deed over approximately 300 acres of the wildlife habitat zone land in the Sea Pines Forest Preserve Foundation. Charlie, you also work with that group, so maybe you can talk about
Right,
that.
I've been on the Sea Pines Forest Preserve Advisory Board for, I think, 8 or 9 years now. Probably have term limited out. But one of the issues that homeowners have often raised to me is that how about the ownership? Right now we lease on a long-term lease. The Forest Preserve Foundation leases the Forest Preserve on a long-term lease, 2 50-year leases or 100 years, and are responsible for maintaining that property. So this, in my mind, salves an old wound where people felt that we should own that, and they've agreed to make that transfer. Because the transfer is difficult to survey out, they're also going to cover the cost of the survey. If there's land left over that we can't account for, they're going to give us joint ownership on that. So it's a most generous approach to making the forest preserve stand alone as a amenity for this community.
Our next term issue, the Sea Pines Resort will work with ASPPPO, CSA, and other necessary parties to reach an agreement on implementing a more effective commercial assessment, which would be finalized through a future referendum. Mark, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we feel that everybody needs to participate in the cost of running the community. Commercial interests, just like the resort, and we residents. Because we need support for a referendum affecting how the commercial interests are assessed, it's important that we have the resort on board with approving such a referendum. Cliff and Steve and we have worked on a formula. We think that formula works. We've presented that to the commercial interests. We think we're pretty close. This is not something that's going to appear in a current referendum. It's just to simply say the resort understands We need their support for changing the commercial assessments, and in this agreement, they're agreeing to give us just that.
The next is the Sea Pines Resort will donate $1 million in funding improvements for Sea Pines, subject to ASPPPO approval. Charlie, would you want to address the funding?
It can be used any way that we see fit. There are numerous things, as Mark said. When I started on this whole odyssey of trying to get this negotiation done, my primary concern was the long-term financial stability of Sea Pines as a place where I have a future and the future generations do. So this is an important contribution to helping us support amenities. We've done things like Tower Beach 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We don't have the money to do those kinds of things right now. There are other things like the gate that need to be redone. So this is a generous offer towards solving some of those kinds of issues.
This is also a forest preserve related issue. The Sea Pines Resort will promote voluntary donations from guests to the Sea Pines Forest Preserve Foundation and agrees to share revenue from the Gator Boat concession on a 50-50 basis with the foundation. Charlie, can you handle that one too?
Yeah, it's funny. We are working on a long-range plan for Sea Pines, and Donna Bremer, the same real estate evaluation person who looked at the future of Sea Pines, gave us an evaluation of our current plantation. Her comment was, you have a fantastic asset in the forest preserve. It's unlike anywhere else. The problem with the forest preserve is it has no source of revenue. The Riverstone Group at Kiowa pioneered a way of having hotel guests and rental guests contribute $3 or $2 a room night towards a fund. If we were able to duplicate that experience that they have up at Kiowa, we could generate close to $100,000 a year. In addition to that, they agreed to share concession revenue, and that's a significant number too, because surprisingly, that little old gator boat takes a lot of people around the forest preserve. So these are critical. It is critical for the forest preserve in the future to have a sustainable source of revenue for the improvements that we need to make. You've seen the boardwalk improvement, which is fantastic. Well, that's just a very small piece, and the voluntary contributions which have come in through the bonfire and the party in the pines have helped fund that, but it's not enough going forward. That's a tremendous resource. We need to do more to improve it. We need to improve the roads so you can actually get in there. We'd like to put some bike trails in so that you can ride a bicycle and relieve some of the traffic on the outside bike trails. We want to move the entrance over so it utilizes that service road, and so you can actually find the forest preserve, which a lot of people can't. So, I mean, there are a lot of things like that, but they all cost money, and we haven't had the ability to do that to date.
The next. The Sea Pines Resort would support an increase in the gate fee. Implementation would require commercial interest approval.
This is another of those agreements that we have concluded with the resort. And it's not a covenant, it's not a referendum, it's an agreement that we've reached with the resort, assuming this package goes forward. The gate fee policy is a policy that is approved by the CSA board. There is a gate committee that makes recommendations to the board, but the ultimately authority on establishing the gate policy, which includes the gate fees, not only for daily visitors, but as well as commercials and commercial visitors and every other kind of pass holder that's sold, comes through that gate policy. There is a desire on behalf of CSA, I've mentioned generating revenue, there's significant revenue that can be generated and is being generated off that gate. ASPPPO supports raising that gate fee. CSA supports raising that gate fee, but we are controlled, if you will, or restricted perhaps, if you will, by a bankruptcy court agreement that was generated back in the late 80s, 88, Charles?
No, I think it was much
84?
more recent than that. It was the
A bankruptcy agreement that gave the right to approve any change in the fee structures to the resort as a result now that they own Harbortown and the Sea Pines Center. So getting the resort on board with a gate fee increase is one step closer to being able to accomplish that. The current proposal that they have agreed to CSA and ASPO with is to increase the gate fee to a $10 level during the months of April through September. That's peak season. And based upon our calculations, if daily gate passes continue to be sold at the current rate that they're being sold, that could generate upwards of nearly $1 million of additional revenue to CSA. So it's important that we have the resort support. We've still got some work to do with the commercial interests.
The next is the Sea Pines Resort will offer Heritage Farm a 10-year lease extension to assure its continued operation at its existing location. Mark or Charlie?
Yeah, when we began the discussion of the possibility of using the 8 of the acres at Lawton Stables, the alarm bells went off, and the idea of, well, right across the street is Heritage Farm, and how about that? Why couldn't you use that land? And they could use that land, but the plan is not to use that land. And I got a petition from the people who are part of Heritage Farm, signed by some 100 people, I think, and we took that to the resort, and they agreed we will preserve Heritage Farm.
The next is the ASPO board agrees to support a referendum approving a portion of the existing Lawton Stables tract to be used as a public tennis facility. Charlie?
No, I think that's Steve.
Steve?
Well, I think we've covered that earlier with the discussion about tennis, and it's a requirement that we would need to have on the ballot to have the approval to make a portion of the stables tennis use.
Okay. So what's beneficial to all of us? The Sea Pines Resort and property owners' desires are the same, to keep Sea Pines a preeminent coastal destination. The Sea Pines Resort has invested more than $85 million in Sea Pines, mostly in the past 5 years, and they want to invest more. These enhancements and investments benefit all Sea Pines community property owners, yet cost us as homeowners nothing. So I guess that's basically kind of a summary of this. I think we really want to then kind of go into a timeline for the referendum. Let me just flip this page.
Maybe, Barry, before you
Go ahead.
wrap up with the timeline, I'd like to comment on a couple of important topics, traffic congestion and also our right of repurchase, which has been an issue recently.
Okay.
First of all, traffic and congestion in and around Sea Pines. Sea Pines, as you know, is a busy place. It's essentially a small town with nearly 5,000 households. There's many service providers that come in and out every day, and there's only 2 ways in and out of the community. So it creates bottlenecks at times at our gates, especially the Greenwood Gate. We can't create this 5-star experience with tie-ups at the gate and traffic congestion in Sea Pines. So we want to do our part to help alleviate that and to improve traffic flow. A few examples, we've agreed to increase the gate fee. We're offering $1 million in funding, which could be used to improve the Greenwood Gate and the lanes there. We've also offered an easement on part of the Sea Pines Welcome Center property, if needed, to expand the road system to add new lanes. We want to continue basically to work with CSA and the town. The CSA's new gate committee, gate improvement committee that's been formed. And we've also engaged traffic engineers to calculate the impact of the 90 rooms. We know it's going to be pretty insignificant to the total amount of traffic, but we're going to have that result soon. But bottom line is, on traffic, we are in the same position that residents are. we want to help reduce the traffic congestion and improve the traffic flow, mainly into the gates. Now, our right of first refusal. This important right has existed since the beginning of the covenants in 1974. We've used it very infrequently. I think a handful of times in the past 20 years it's been used. And when it has been used, the property owners that are selling their property have received the same amount in the sale that they would have received from the other purchaser. We're studying a program to try to use an independent appraiser as a benchmark for determining what the fair market value of properties are. But we really have no intention to use the right that we have very often, and it's only infrequently that we would use it. Sellers of properties where we would use it are going to receive a premium for the sale of their property. Sellers would retain the commissions that are normally paid to real estate commissions. It avoids hassles of showing your properties to prospective buyers. Also, it avoids the potential reduction in sales price from the normal inspection process. So we believe that sellers would walk away with more money from the transaction, and every time we would use the right of repurchase or the right of first refusal, we would want everybody to feel like they were fairly treated in the transaction. So I just wanted to make those comments. We don't intend to use the right very often. We haven't used it in the past very often, and it's a right that has existed since 1974.
Steve, for the benefit of the residents and the crowd that's here, you've made it very public that your desire to own the units at Fairway 1, correct?
That's correct.
And I don't believe there are any other areas around the plantation where you've expressed any desire to own any residential real estate. Is that right?
That's correct. We have used the right, and we are interested in purchasing the commercial properties that are in Harbortown that we don't own.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a potential use. But at Fairway 1, there's 14 units there that are right adjoining the Plantation Club, directly across the street from the Beach Club. We've purchased 3 of those units. There's 11 more property owners there. We don't really have any plans for the property, but it's in an important spot there that's between our 2 properties. And we would like to purchase those 14 units, and all those unit owners know that. We have worked with 2 of the owners over there who have done tax-free exchanges on their properties, who have upgraded and bought larger properties in Sea Pines. And I think most of the owners, or all the owners at Fairway 1, understand that we would have an interest in purchasing their property.
Thanks.
So here is the referendum requirement and timeline. Discussions have been going on for approximately 2 years, as you've heard. To begin this new phase, the referendum needs to be put forward to increase the size of the inn by 90 rooms for a total of 150 rooms. These are the open meetings we had today, and there'll be several others throughout the summer. We intend for the referendum timing to be in the early fall with a 30-day voting period. So I think that sums this up, and I think what we're going to do here, I'm going to explain how we're going to handle our Q&As.
I want to make one
ahead,
comment,
Charlie.
just because as I was listening to this, it occurred to me that perhaps it isn't exactly clear how this all came to pass. These terms that you've just reviewed were terms that we negotiated with the resort and are contingent on the passage of the referendum. So these are things we receive if the referendum passes. In order for ASPPPO to support and for its board to approve the amendment, or what ultimately will be the referendum, the resort had to agree to these things. So that's why this negotiation took 2 years, and that's what they put on the table in order to allow ASPPPO or the property owners to approve their proposition.
Okay, thanks for clarifying, Charlie. At this point, if you have a question, we'd like you to begin forming organized lines at the microphones. There are 2 of them, I said. One microphone's over there, 1, and here's 2. We will take questions in this order: microphone 1, then to microphone 2, and then we'll take a question from the webinar that Amanda is handling, and we will continue that same rotation back to mic 1, 2, and we'll go to the people on the webinar. Due to our 2-hour meeting time restraints, we ask for no speeches, please. This is a question and answer session. Just make it short, and please stay on topic so that everybody has a chance to participate. Now, who on microphone 1 has the first question?
Barry, thank you. I'm Don Carlson. I'm former board member, both CSA and ASPO. And I find the whole proposal exciting, the opportunities that we have to work with the resort to upgrade the community is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity if it's done right. And I'm concerned with the property owner's interests. Charlie, you had indicated that your primary concern going into the negotiations was financial stability. I think that's critical, but most of us are here because of the quality of life. We live here, and of course we've got to be financially viable, but the quality of life issues are key to most of us. And there are many people that are not supportive of the term sheets as it exists as presented. Barry, you'd indicated you wanted to get facts on the table, and I just want to take a minute just to present them because I think it's in the property owner's interest to be fully informed.
A minute? You have
a
a
minute. With respect to the proposed referendum, it's based on the 1984 lawsuit settlement. That lawsuit settlement resulted in 2 basic documents. One was a settlement agreement, and one was an agreement between the company and ASPPPO. ASPPPO accepted that memorandum of agreement, and frankly, I think the board perhaps was a little naive and too trusting because they were snookered a little bit with it. I'll explain. If you've read the documents, you know that it's about more than just the hotel rooms. The memorandum of agreement, the very first item listed was, and it's ironic, was that there would be a gate advisory committee formed with ASPPPO to control gate access, but it didn't do that. It had no teeth in it, and consequently we end up with abusive gate policies that provide excessive traffic flow. Let's fix it now. It's part of the original agreement. Let's fix it. The second item, interestingly, and I'm not making this up, the second item dealt with the right of first refusal. It was cosmetic. It didn't do anything. Let's fix it. We've got an opportunity to do that by correcting these term sheets. The third item provided ASPPPO with the appointment of 4 members to the ARB, and the resort, the company at that time, agreed to submit any plans to the ARB for approval. Currently, ASPPPO only appoints 2 members to the ARB and cedes the right to CSA for the other 2. Get the ASPPPO, get that right back. You can work with the resort and help them build the parking garage or whatever in a way that the property owners can support. Finally, the fourth provision, and this is going back to 1984, and I'll quote this: there's an agreement to achieve equitable contribution from all parties benefiting the use of facilities in Sea Pines, including the proprietors of all commercial activities. We know that's been totally abused. Fix it now. Don't kick it down the road and say, well, we'll do it at some point in the future. That's what these folks did, and we're dealing with exactly the same things. The resort wants a 5-star community, a 5-star resort. We want a 5-star community. Let's work together to address these issues. As long as the traffic's there, we can't get to the amenities, the leisure trails are overcrowded, and so on. Until we address those, you can't have a 5-star resort and a 3-star community that are dealing with these issues. So let's fix it. I have 2 questions, very simply.
Well, no, Don, I
Are-
think,
are-
Don,
are-
you
are-
might find a friend to ask the questions for you. I mean, I think, you know, you asked.
I'm just making one question, both to the ASPO board and to the resort. Are you willing to go back to the negotiating table and seriously address the gate access, commercial assessments, and the other issues? Or are you saying, this is it, take it or leave it?
You want to answer that?
I think we have said that as it relates to the commercial assessments, that we have an agreement in concept, and we are working to conclude that and expect it will be a topic of a future referendum. So is that on the table on this referendum? No, it's not. As it relates to the gate, I explained to you, notwithstanding the memorandum, whatever that memorandum means, and you yourself, as a board member during those years, you just said it was a meaningless document. I just explained to you the control that exists with the commercial interest. How do I go? We've got the consent with the resort. I don't know what more I can get from the resort other than their agreement to increase the gate fee. I don't know. I can't. If you can figure out a way to bring those other guys to the table, I would surely like to hear about that.
You've got legal opinions.
I'd like to comment to it with an answer to, you raised 4 things, but 3 of them. Gate Committee, the Gate Committee is now co-chaired by an appointment by ASPO. So the residential, however many people are appointed or not appointed, the co-chair is the president of ASPO or his appointee. So from the standpoint of who's in the Gate Committee, it's me. ARB, I'm president of ARC. ARC is the holding company for ARB. I mean, there are always issues with ARB because of paint colors and things like that, but I think ARB works pretty well. And yes, the resort does have to go through ARB for approval. Contribution. We had a discussion with the resort that ended up in this proposal for a commercial assessment. We had a proposal that basically was geared off of a residential assessment based on 2,500 square feet. To be fair to the commercial interest, they'd never seen that before. So when we presented this to the ASPO board and this became public, we immediately met with Bob Gossett and Don Sigmund and Mark King, because those are the 3 primary commercial interests, and said, this is what we want to do. And they said, well, we can do that, but we think we can do one better. So Bob Gossett put together a team of people that are working on a better proposal for the commercial assessment. The idea of this whole process is to get a fair share of income from the respective components. So we're working on the resort. That one is part of this referendum. We're working on the commercial. They, in fairness to them, let them come forward with their proposal. Actually, their proposal generates more revenue than the one we had. So I'd like to see what that is and see if they can get that one done. And then the third one, as Mark has alluded to, once we get our finances together and we know what we've got, then we can tell the community, here's the deficit we have, so all 3 of us come to the table at the same time. So that's the equitable contribution, which is the last piece of that. And is the resort willing to go back to the table? I'm not willing to go back and renegotiate the $1 million or a number of things, but we are in the process. That's what this meeting is about. We're at the table right now, listening to what you have to say and trying to find a way to work around it. We have, in my opinion, and on the right of first refusal, which is one of the things you issued, we have a good solution to that. It is not eminent domain. They're not going in and forcing people out of their house. This is a business deal which benefits the owners who want to sell their property. And I think we can codify that in such a way that it satisfies any reasonable test. Obviously, there are always people who won't satisfy with anything. So I think we have answers basically to the pieces you're involved in, and we do need to clean up the term sheet so that they accurately reflect what you were talking about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, microphone 2. Thank you, Don. Microphone 2.
Hi, my name is Kathy Taylor, and I'm on Wood Duck Road. I have a point of clarification for the questioner. Number one, is the bankruptcy agreement that somebody up here is talking about the same as the 284 agreement, the February 84 agreement?
No.
Okay, there's another, you're talking about other documents. Okay, thank you. Procedurally, you said that ASPPPO board did not vote, and we have not voted. Procedurally, which comes first? The referendum, and then the board takes action, or the board takes action, and then the referendum?
The board will be presented with a conditional resolution, and the conditional resolution would be to support the overall package of the agreement, subject to the referendum being
approval by the
passed. So if the referendum doesn't pass, the whole thing goes in the
Okay,
toilet.
thank you. About the package where you said that the $2,310,837, that's going to be the increase, but right now it's $1,063,151. So it's going to be increased, actually only $1,247,686 over 5 years.
Right.
I mean, off the top of my head, it looks like $250,000 per year for the next 5 years. Then what? Is that a cap, or is that
no.
disappear, or what happens
No,
after that?
the resort-
And also, it occurs to me that you can't have another referendum because that would affect the hotel people.
Another,
Another referendum, which was one of the things you said we could do again, but only referenda that doesn't impact negatively or positively
without
on the other.
without resort approval.
Exactly.
That's right.
So what happens with that $250,000 after 5 years?
The resort assessment is going from 0.5% to 0.75%.
Okay.
The numbers that we showed you today
Reflect
is
that.
working with the resort, looking at the additional revenue that they expect to be generated as this asset comes online and stabilizes. What would that mean over the subsequent 5 years? That doesn't mean it stops at that point. They'll continue to pay 0.75 of their total resort revenue.
In other words, it'll be a cap.
No, it's not a cap.
Well.
It
if
is not a
it's-
cap. This 0.75 is a cap, but if you look at their historical revenue growth, it has grown at a far, far, far greater percentage than any of our residential assessments.
So then every year after those first 5 years.
It'll continue
You
to-
will anticipate it to go up.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Also, about that.
No, I think,
We have questions from the
Next.
webinar.
Okay, but I want to know who paid for the PERMER study that says that we're going to have increased volume and increased,
The resort paid for
the
it.
resort people who are asking us for our vote.
Well, Charlie, you might want to comment on that.
Oh, I'm not pro or against this at the moment. I'm just trying to get clarification.
right, okay.
We do
I
have a
could
question.
comment on that, and that is that the resort did an evaluation study, and they paid for it. We also did an evaluation study, and we paid for it. Ours was done by a different organization, and one that is nationally recognized, and then it's called Valbridge. And then once the resort did theirs, we took the resort valuation, sent it to our appraiser, Valbridge, and they validated it.
Okay.
We have a question from the webinar. Barry?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Amanda.
A question from a property owner via the webinar. The property owner asked to the resort team, could you provide specifics as to the membership fee that will be utilized for the resort swimming, for the new resort swimming pools?
We currently are planning the program for the resort pool, which determines the size of the pool and number of chases and whatnot. In that process, we're going to determine what is the right number of memberships. We don't know that right now. We certainly need to price them appropriately so that they're affordable and used. We want property owners to have access and to use the pool. So Those numbers and finding the right balance is yet to be done, but that's some of the next steps.
Okay, microphone one.
Thank you. I'm Cheryl Clements. I am a property owner here with my husband. We love sea pines. I just want to say I do have kind of tunnel vision about some of this. Not only do I play a lot of tennis, but I work at Lawton Stable. I know what goes into the efforts there. I hope that all property owners like driving by the pastoral area with the horses out front. I can't imagine the tourists being too excited coming into their five-star resort seeing tennis courts on the left-hand side of the road. We also have approximately 52 trail horses, of which we don't have enough land for them right now. It takes a lot of care and a lot of effort bringing all their food in. They have a little bit of grazing land across the road. We take out 5 rides a day with a cap of 28 people. I just would like some of you to come over there and talk to the tourists. Talk to the members of the community that bring their grandchildren and their children out. They love it. They think it's amazing. And I just want to know if there's going to be any rethinking, or spend a day with us and see how it operates out there and how amazing it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Microphone two.
Yeah, Peter Town, I live in Club Course Drive. A couple questions. One of the issues that at least some of my neighbors and I have had is the issue of the short-term realty or short-term rental in some of our properties. And I've been told that we can't do anything about it because there's covenants. The issue, I think, was number 3 up there, was going to address that. I think that it is my understanding that if this issue with the covenants being reviewed and not, you have the control for that now?
It's kind of just the opposite. A property owner has the right to rent their property, and we don't have any restriction to stop them from doing that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
So you would have to go back to the residents in a community like Club Course, where I live,
Right.
and have them give up that right and codify it in some form of agreement. And it could be in the covenants, but they don't exist right now, so that's where the problem lies. So you have to create that restriction, because you cannot take away from somebody who owns a piece of property a right that they have without their agreement.
Okay. My other concern is, ongoing concern, how do we get out of Club Course with the current situation with traffic? And I'm looking at what, if these new people are gonna be coming in and traveling out, in and out of the plantation, that's 135 or 40,000 trips extra a year. That's a lot. I like to be able to get out safely on the Greenwood.
Thank you for your comments. The webinar, Amanda.
Yes, sir. Question from the webinar is from property owner Betsy. There have been many rumors concerning property owner tee times on 3 public courses being eliminated or adjusted from the current tee times. Can you please address this and clarify how this policy might change regarding golf?
We don't have any change to our golf tee times or the golf policies. And we have taken that away from the referendum.
Tori?
Hi, I'm Tori Casella. Good evening. I'm representing the board of Cutter Court 2. We have 40 units. We really have concern about the loss of the Harbor Town Pool. I heard it mentioned in the webinar today that earlier that owners really don't use the Harbor Town Pool, but I would venture that in the summers, particularly, all the courts in Harbor Town really use that pool. It's young families there and so forth. I would like very much to get further granularity about what is going to be the future for the owner's usage of this resort destination pool. We have some anxiety about what the future is going to bring about pool use.
Well, we certainly understand the need for pool access, especially with a number of the Harbor Town villas. As you know, we not only manage our hotel product, but we also manage resort rentals. And so it's important not only for property owners, but for all businesses too. So, we're gonna make this pool available through a membership program. And we need to work with property owners and understand what that membership program is structured like. But I can tell you, it really only works with property owners' usage. So we expect that the usage will be more. We do have usage numbers, and they're low, and they're probably limited to just the Harbortown condominium properties. But we want to, okay. But we will want to have a membership program that is feasible to work with.
I wonder if we get granularity on that, if we could meet at a further time and further discuss this, because it is of importance to us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we certainly plan to meet with the Harbortown residents. We've talked to Dick Matthews and others about that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dory. Hi, Pat. Mike, too.
Okay. I'm Pat Laff. I'm also a Club Course resident, a couple of houses down from Pete Town. With regard to the pool, I only have one comment. We have families that live in the Club Course area that use that Harbortown pool. So it's really fairly extensive throughout the community, not just those that live around Harbortown. My question really comes to how the dollars were determined with regard to the resort's contribution to the annual budget of CSA. And the current dollar amount is about what we're paying, okay, based upon approximately 200 homes. And what you're offering, which is an increase from 0.50 to 0.75, you're talking about increasing it to 300 homes. There's 5,900 homes here. And in my opinion, and I'm just making my own comment, that the dollar amount that the resort is contributing as opposed to the value that the resort has is, it's disproportionate. I personally feel that the resort should be contributing.
Can I interrupt for a minute?
Go ahead.
5,890
Right.
residential units.
Okay.
Think about, what do you think the average value of those units are? I mean, pick a number.
What is the average? What's the average amount of their assessment?
No, but let's start with where the value in this community lies. The value in this community lies in a very significant way with the residents. So who should be burdened, as we are, $6 to $7 million worth of assessment on an annual basis? We have many billions of dollars worth of real estate inside this gate. These guys over here have a few $100,000.
$500 million.
No,
Or a few $100 million, I'm sorry. So I understand what you're saying, and
Okay.
I hear this argument all the time about you're not paying your fair share. I don't understand how you get there.
Because I'm looking at this, all right? I'm looking at the maintenance of the roads. I'm looking at the maintenance of all of the bike trails, every single bit of it. Every single individual that uses the resort's facilities, because they've essentially acquired the rights to that for a week or 10 days.
But they're staying in, I'm not a renter, but if I were, they're
Yeah.
staying in my rental unit, enjoying
I'm not talking
our
about,
roads and our
I'm not
bicycles
talking
and
about-
their golf courses.
But wait a second. You've paid for that privilege, okay? That's in your assessment, okay? I'm saying that the people that are going to be staying at the resort or resort facilities, they are going to be using those roads and the cart paths and everything else just as much.
Sir, I agree with you, but right
Okay.
now that's 60 rooms. And right now it's 100, and what they're proposing
know,
is
but I'm-
150
I'm-
rooms.
Yeah, except that, they use the roads to get to the golf courses. They come from outside of Sea Pines, they pay a gate fee to come in, and they use the golf courses. They eat at the resort's facilities, they try and use the
There's
beach
certainly
clubs,
some of
et
that that
cetera,
goes on,
okay?
there's no question.
Okay, and the dollars that are being paid, okay, proportionate to everybody else, is far below what it should be. Now, I'm not saying,
Let
okay,
me comment too.
Go ahead,
Let me just jump in because we have a local resident, David Pardue. I don't know if you know him. He did a really nice job of doing an analysis of that. I should publish it. I'm sure David would appreciate it. It does validate pretty much where we are. If you're suggesting that we should charge the resort a couple $1 million a year or something like that, that's fine, but it's not going to happen because it's just not viable. You can't run a business. I mean, even at the percentage that we're taking off the top, it's not of profit, it's of revenue. This is right off the top. And any of you who have run a competitive business know that that's a significant chunk of your operating expense. So I would, you could, what is fair is a tough standard because everybody defines fair a little differently.
okay, well, what I'm looking at is not, this isn't a charge situation. You're negotiating, okay? And you've negotiated 0.75 from 0.50. Now, I'm suggesting that 0.75 isn't enough.
Okay.
I'm not saying what is too much, and I'm not saying what it should be, but I do think that 0.75 is not enough.
There's a
Okay?
good
And by the way, the contribution that you were making of $1 million could be eaten up entirely by the change of the Sea Pines Gate, all right? And I can tell you,
Well-
you haven't enjoyed a morning until you've lined up and you're the 10th or 11th car waiting to make a left turn off of Club Course Drive onto Greenwood so you can get out of Sea
So
Pines.
Charlie, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, they're talking about investing $75 million, so it's not exactly like they're only investing $1 million here. We benefit from that $75 million. Yeah, they benefit from it too. Let me
Yeah, they do.
Let me go back and touch base on the 0.75. There's a website out there. It's called Sea Pines Property Owners. That question came up on that. I posted an answer to it. It's a longer answer than I'd like to go through here. It involves a potential litigation. It involves a great many discussions that we had with the resort and with our attorneys as to what was a fair number. So you might want to read it off of the homeowners Facebook page. But essentially, the bottom line of it is we could have engaged in a 5-year litigation over more money. It would have cost us about $500,000. It would have taken us about 5 years. And that's our attorney, not their attorney. It's our attorney advising us, this is a good settlement, go ahead and do it.
Okay. Thank you, Pat, for your question. Amanda, webinar?
Question from the webinar from property owner Leanne. Assuming the referendum is approved, what is the expected time frame to start the construction and finish the project in Harbortown?
Well, we've got about 12 months worth of design work to do once we get approval. So assuming early fall, we would begin that work, and then in the fall of 2018, we would have a permit. And this is at the earliest, assuming we pass, that we move it forward, at the time that we have. The construction period is roughly about 18 months is what we expect at this point. And obviously, we would minimize the disruption as much as possible, similar to how we did with Harbortown Clubhouse and that construction process. We would lessen the impact to the neighborhood as much as possible.
Thank you. Mike 1.
Hi, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic, by the way. As a former property owner in Palmetto Bluff, the gentleman who was on mic 2, we paid $12,000 a year for the same amenities that we pay $0 for in Sea Pines. So it's all in perspective. So we really need to move forward, guys. I mean, when we moved to Sea Pines 6 years ago, I thought it was beautiful, the trees, the beach, but the buildings were all, my son worked at what we called the Beach Shack, which was the old beach club, and I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I support you 100%. 2 quick things. The stables, I have to agree. I think we moved here for tennis. My daughter went to Smith Stearns, but tennis courts, not so good from the road. Why don't we put, I hate to emulate Palmetto Bluff, but put a chapel, use the barns as a wedding venue. It'll be income for you, and it'll be beautiful to look at. And we have so much land. We can find another place for the courts, because I am all for tennis, because that's why I'm here. And also, real quick, I know I'm out of time. Thank you, Academy.
Be
Okay.
efficient.
Okay, so valet parking. Okay, how about golf carts? We use golf carts. They come through the gate. We have a valet, brings them to the inn. We don't have all that congestion in Harbortown. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mike 2.
My name is Joe Ondo, and the question of right of first refusal, I believe, I live in Heritage Villas. I'm a full-time resident. I've owned since 1980. And my concern is if the resort decides to purchase 1 or 2 villas close to where the inn is right now, and next thing you know, they want to purchase a few more. I know that's not their intention right now. However, as a negotiating point, can we get that off the table, the right of first refusal? I think this referendum would have a better chance of going through, because besides Heritage Villas, there are other properties that are probably in the same situation.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
We have no intention, by the way, to purchase any Heritage Villas or any other villa complexes in Harbortown. There's too many property owners to try to affect that, and we have no use of the property, and it's not our intention at all.
I understand, but
Well, we're creating a problem that doesn't actually exist and that might exist, and there are other problems that might exist as well. I don't mean to minimize that, but this is not eminent domain. This is people who want to sell their property.
exactly.
So you can't,
why-
they can't go in and take your property. You have to say, I
Why
want to
is,
sell
why
it.
is why is it there? Why not take it off the table? Right of first refusal. If no one has any intention of doing anything, why not take it off the table?
Well, and if I could just throw something out for those that support needing to get rid of this right of first refusal. These covenants have existed for over 60 years, and everyone in this room that owns a home here accepted those covenants. They're ours. We own them, okay? To ask these guys to give up something that of this nature, I think is a non-starter. I wouldn't do it if I were them, and that's why it's not on the table.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
it-
think
it-
that
it's gonna-
we tend to sound like Mark and I are apologists for the resort. We're not. We're residents like you. We own houses here. You know, we drive our cars through the gate. We walk our dogs on the street. I do.
But we have
the same interests you do.
Exactly.
And the solution to that particular problem, which is a reasonable solution, is a policy that provides protection for people who want to sell their house. We're not going to take anybody's house away. They don't have the right to take anybody's house. So when you want to sell your house, here's the procedure you use.
Exactly.
Okay.
I agree, 100%. So why is
Thank
the
you.
need for the
So there's a
right of
procedure
first
for that.
refusal?
It is off the table as
You
far as I'm
decide to
concerned.
sell.
I mean, no, the only thing is, there's property owners that I know of that are against this whole thing simply because of the right of first refusal.
Because I think they don't understand the covenants.
Yeah.
Well,
And they
I
don't
think-
understand the alternative.
covenant. The covenants were done in 1957.
I understand. You have
Amanda,
to
we're going
decide
to
to
go to
sell your house,
webinar.
you get an offer, you get paid. It's
Okay.
that simple.
Webinar question,
Thank
please.
you, Barry. A question from our property owner, Scott. I own a villa in Harbortown, and we only have one parking spot. We rely on the open lots around Harbortown for overflow parking for our guests. Please expand on your plans for access to parking for Harbortown residents and guests, please.
The lots will still be there and available. We hope to expand the number of spaces in some of the lots as we realign the spaces, and those parking areas will still be available to property owners.
Okay, Mike 1, please.
I'm Catherine Capps, and I'm a resident here. We were owners of the Caravelle Court for 12 years, and it was during the time that the inn was being built. And at that time, we were told that our property values were going to go up, that the inn was going to make our property values go up. After 12 years, we sold our villa for the exact same price we paid for it. And taking the swimming pool out makes it more expensive. I'm finding that people don't want those villas anymore because the expense is far more than the other. Now, I looked at the grassy areas for the new inn area, and over on the corner where that original swimming pool is, there's still a lot of grassy area, and I question whether there's a possibility that we could keep it and not worry about having the trees and the grass, but have a swimming pool that those people could do. The second question is, years ago when y'all were building the Plantation Club, there was a footprint for an inn-cottages-swimming pool. Now, if we do this, is that footprint going to go away, or do we now look at, in the future, building something at Plantation where that original footprint was?
Well, let's see. The first question again was
The possibility
about
of
Caravelle
keeping the
Court.
swimming pool,
Yeah,
and the fact that the values don't go up. We owned it for 12 years and sold it for the same price we paid for it.
Well, values, as you know, fluctuate with the market demands and market fluctuations and things. But the area where the current pool is going to be needed for parking to make sure we have not only parking for the new hotel, but also golf parking, which is critical to Harbortown. So we're not going to be able to leave two pools that are across the street from each other. But the new pool is going to be available to owners of Caravelle Court, and it's going to be a fabulous pool, much better, nicer amenities than what we have today.
But it's going to be available at a cost to us. And I also question, since, I guess we moved down here permanently 6 years ago. And in the last 4 or 5 years, we don't go to Harbortown in the summertime because there is no parking. So if you put a swimming pool over there, how are you going to park? What are you going to do for parking?
Well, we're planning to improve all the other parking areas around Harbortown, including the gravel lot area that is on the right, and make that really a nicer, much nicer parking experience than it is today. And then realign some of the other parking areas in and around the Harbortown area. And
Thank you.
expand the number of spaces.
Microphone 2.
Excuse me, he didn't answer my question about the footprint on Plantation.
The rights that we have at the Plantation Club are still there, but as we know, with the amount of parking that's needed for golf, the amount of parking that's needed for the beach club, we're not going to be able to do anything with that property. We're going to need to allocate it to the parking that's needed.
Okay, good,
Okay,
thank you.
Mike 2.
Yeah, I'm John Mills, a property owner, and on switching from a long-term lessor of the forest preserve to an owner, what are the financial implications of that? So for instance, do we pick up now property taxes? Would we have been responsible for cleanup of the hurricane? I mean, what are the financial implications of going from a lessor to an owner?
Actually, none. As a lessor, we have all those obligations anyway. So there's really no change in going from one to the other.
Okay.
Thank you. Webinar.
Question from the webinar from property owner Theodore. How will the referendum votes be counted? Will it be counted one per household or votes for anyone who signed the covenant? A little confusing.
Well, there's an ASPPPO vote, right, and a CSA property owner vote. CSA property owner vote is per property. One property, one vote. ASPPPO, I think, is a bit different, Charlie, right?
Yeah. The agreement is owned by ASPPPO, so ASPPPO itself has to approve this in addition to a referendum. I mentioned that in my opening comments. So there are two things that have to occur. One is the ASPPPO has to approve modifying the hotel, the hotel settlement agreement, and then in addition to that, a referendum has to pass at the rate of 75%. So the actual way that will be implemented is as follows. The board will be given a provisional motion to approve the referendum subject to some conditions, and those conditions would be the conditions that are on the term sheet, the condition that the 75% referendum passes. So then the board says, assuming the board says yes, we then have two separate ballots. One ballot goes to all ASPPPO members, and we collect those ballots. At the same time, all non-ASPO property owners get a ballot. The 75% is everybody, so if you're a property owner, whether you're an ASPO member or not, you get to vote on a referendum. So that's how we will differentiate what is an ASPO vote from a CSA vote, but in the end, it takes 75% of everybody to do it.
But the ASPO member is based on an annual payment of $35.
Correct.
And it doesn't matter whether you own one home or whether you own 5 homes, you can only be one member.
Good point.
We have a follow-up question quite quickly. Will the vote be all-inclusive, or will there be different parts for each item that will be voted on separately?
It'll be all-inclusive.
Yeah, that's a very important thing for y'all to focus on. I know that there's various people that have one thing or another that's more important than another. It's important that you step away from this and look at the entire package, because a no vote, because you're staunchly opposed to right of first refusal, means this entire thing goes away.
Microphone 1, please.
Ruth Ryan.
Ruth.
I have to say, I was very disappointed tonight. I'm very upset. I never got an email. I've been in Connecticut, just got in last night, checked all my emails, never got an email that the venue was changed. So whoever, if Eventbrite, I don't know why you're paying Eventbrite. We could have emailed our responses back to you. Some people got them. I never got them.
Have a chat with Amanda, but
Ruth, come see me afterwards.
You know, there's been in 2 sessions 750 people got an email. So you might want to check and I'm not being critical, I'm just check with Amanda and make sure the emails that you're checking are the ones that she is sending invitations to.
Got the
Right.
first one.
I'm glad you got here, Ruth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No, I have.
Can you speak into the microphone, Ruth?
Yep.
Thank you.
I can't get it down.
That's okay.
Shorty, I just think that I have several points. We need to have part of this package of deleting the right of first refusal, because we're talking about changing a covenant for this thing, so don't argue about not changing covenants. I mean, you're trying to change covenants now, so replacing the 2 pools, you're taking 2 pools away, and thank you. And then you're going to charge us for the new one? You're taking 2 pools away for residents that have used them when man of war and stingrays and everything else were all over the beach, and we can't use the ocean. We want a pool
Right.
that we can use free of charge. There, and part of the package.
Okay, thank you. Microphone 2.
I'm not finished, please.
Well, you're not asking questions, you're just commenting.
Let me make a statement about the pools.
I just have comments.
So that it's clear. CSA purchases access to the Harbortown Pool and to the South Beach Pool on an annual basis at the privilege, if you will, of the user that owns those pools that allows CSA to buy those rights for you. There's no guarantee that any of those rights will exist tomorrow. And in fact, the resort has told us that when they build their new pool, they will not be extending those rights to CSA. So the rights that you have enjoyed you have in effect been paying for because CSA has been paying for it. Right. Going forward, if you choose to be a member, just like if you choose to be a member of the tennis racket club, if you choose to be a member of the country club, if you choose to play golf, you're going to have to pay a fee for it. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality.
Well, Hilton Head Plantation just built a beautiful one, and they.
Okay, thank you. Microphone 2, please.
Traffic problem needs to be addressed because it's a mess.
Okay. Yes, we've covered all of those issues. Thank you, though. Microphone 2.
Priscilla Crutcher on Lawton Road. I'd just like to say, please reconsider where you're going to locate the tennis courts. Greenwood and Plantation is a very busy intersection already, and I think it would ruin the stables. So I'd like to see a reconsideration, please, for the tennis courts. Thanks.
Thank you. Webinar, Amanda.
A question from the webinar. Will other annual fees be changed for access to public items such as pool, tennis, or golf courses?
None other than the pool. You know, the tennis currently has an access fee, and that would be the case in the future as well. So.
Microphone 1.
That issue, I'm sorry, this is Mike Liska from Deer Island. You're proposing to put this great big go-to pool right next to our neighborhood. We're not seeing the land that's available there to do all that, plus control the traffic, plus control the parking. You kind of glossed over it on your presentation, but a number of our folks are here today. We're not really seeing that, and it doesn't just go for Deer Island. I think it goes for all the people that live up and down that road right there. Number one, so maybe I'd like that to be better explained to us. And number two, you keep saying, oh, we're going to figure out what these extra amenities are going to cost the residents, such as the pool. But I think we have a right to know what that's going to cost before we vote on this thing.
Thanks.
Well, the access and flow obviously is part of our parking discussions that we have at the end of every planning session. The land that is in that area would be utilized as for the pool, but the parking and access is all happening as soon as you come into Harbortown. So the flow would be some creation of between the beginning of the gravel lot and maybe even a quarter of the way into it is how you would enter that area. So you're not really driving around to Deer Island, but we think it's important to pick those vehicles up as soon as you get into Harbortown from a traffic standpoint. Get them in the lot and parked, and then on foot from there.
Okay, maybe it was just me, but I couldn't tell where that pool was going exactly from your little map up there.
It's an easy way to think about it is behind the bakery and the real estate office that's there today. So there's area behind there that's currently used as a organic parking area, but it's not very efficient. It also extends over to where there's a trash compactor, if you're familiar with that as well. So.
Okay.
Aren't you going to post the post of drawings?
Yeah, we actually, yeah, we currently have a website, Enhancing Sea Pines Together, that we have the website. This is just posted over the weekend, so we're announcing that today, right now. That we'll have those images on the website, the ones that we looked at today. So if you want to look at those further, and then I'll certainly be glad to walk through it with you.
That website, just so you know, is enhancingseapines.com. Right, exactly.
Okay, then the second question was, I think we need to know what it's going to cost us as individual residents, because I guarantee if I don't know that answer, I for sure am going to vote no. And there may be others out there like me.
Well, I think it'd be good to start talking about that because, you know, one of the things we need to understand is the cost of it. You know, that's what we're working through right now. And as soon as we know that, you know, that's going to help us understand what kind of business plan has to be put together for this. In addition to that, I think it's important to know, you know, what is a reasonable amount for a membership, and then how many memberships. We need to work through that. So.
Okay,
so,
but when are we going to know?
Well, there was a request earlier to meet with Harbortown residents and to start those discussions. So we'll do that, and we'll be the catalyst to get those meetings and discussions started over the next weeks.
This will be there will be ongoing discussions throughout the summer, you know, prior to the ballot. So including some additional forums too. Microphone 2.
Good evening, Felice Lamarca, property owner. I would like you to clarify something for me. I keep hearing about adding 90 rooms in Harbortown in conjunction with the 100 rooms that you can do at Plantation Club. Is that what this is, addition to, or you want to transfer that allocation to Harbortown?
The proposal is additional rooms at Harbortown, and we're not affecting what rights we have at the Plantation Club.
So you could still build the 100 rooms at Plantation Club in the future, should you decide to?
Yeah, I'm not sure it would fit, and we obviously have a lot of parking needs at the Plantation Club, so you know, we don't have.
So the covenant change we're talking about that limits you to no more than 160 rooms is what we're changing.
That's correct.
By adding
I
90
think everybody
adding 90
needs to
rooms.
be clear on that. Now, does that increase density? How does it affect, we've got the 5890 family dwelling units. How many rooms are you allowed? Is that part of that or not?
The hotel rooms are not part of the 5890
So you
residential
can,
units.
so you can have as many as you want. That's
Well,
not
no,
in the covenants.
We have to get approval, and so that's the request, is we have to get the approval from property owners.
If you want, but not if you want to proceed with the 100 in Plantation Club.
That's right, we'd have to fit it on the site, though, and the site is totally maxed with the parking needs at the Plantation Club. So we don't have any plans to develop any further at the Plantation Club, and our request is strictly
Are
to
you
create
still
this-
working within your 105 acres?
Yes, absolutely,
And you're making sure that that stays intact?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
ASPO, you really need to pay attention to the number of acres, how they're being used to our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. The webinar question.
Question from the webinar from Ed and Joanne. What happens to the CQ's restaurant? And then a follow-up question as well as the areas or buildings around that location.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, with the bakery and the real estate office and CQ's is also in that area, we feel strongly we're going to need to relocate the bakery and the real estate office out closer to the road, or reconfigure that on the site somehow to get the pool element to fit. The Saddlebag building, I'm not sure it's going to survive. So it's currently used as storage. I think we can find a better location to store things.
Dick?
I think they were talking about
CQs.
CQs in particular.
Yeah.
Microphone one, Dick.
Two questions. The first from me, and I'll direct it to Charlie, but I suppose anyone, either here or Mark, can answer. One more time, I'm sorry to be thick about how this ballot will look. And these are my words, not yours, but let's pretend there's going to be a yellow ballot for ASPO and a white ballot for everybody else.
Okay.
Okay? So if the ASPO people were to vote, for example, against 60/40, and the other property owners, the participating property owners that are not ASPO members, vote in favor 80/20, are they all married together? Am I understanding how this works?
A referendum is 75% of property owners, period. Doesn't matter whether they're ASPO members or not. So if you get 75% of the property owners voting in favor of it, the referendum passes.
Okay, and then so why have the differentiation?
Because there, in addition to the referendum, there is the hotel agreement, which must be modified by ASPO. So ASPO itself needs to approve the change to the hotel agreement. That's why I started off the meeting. Two things have to happen. ASPO has to approve the amendment to the hotel agreement, and the referendum has to pass by 75% of all property owners voting.
Okay, it's the same 75% bogey.
I don't understand
It's
the question.
it's 75% of the total rooftops.
Right.
Of property owners. It's the total.
Right.
That vote?
No. Voted.
That vote?
The vote.
Voted.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. All right, and again, a series of questions from, it turns out, all Harbortown constituents. I think they've all been answered, except for one specific. I'm not sure anybody can address this. It sounds like a lawyer question to me. However, I promised that if I got these, I would ask. And the question is, what if, this is first right of refusal, what if someone wants to gift their property to a child? How does right of first refusal fit into all that, if it does? If anybody can answer that.
Generally, we do get requests for when there are family transfers or if there's transfers to trust. We've always waived those transfers to make sure that our right on those and transfers happen as the property owner wishes.
Okay, Mike 2.
Hi, my name's Zanelle Johnson. I'm a property owner. I've heard
two interpretations on the voting, and I just wanted to clarify that. 75% plus one of the total number of voters, or 75% plus one of the total number of households?
Voters.
Voters.
Wow.
Of those returned, is that not correct?
Of
The people that vote.
The people that vote, returned ballots.
Returned
Okay.
ballots.
Okay.
Same as every other election.
And that's going
works
on
in
over 30 days?
Sea Pines.
30-day period.
Will there be a diligent effort to reach all
Yes,
residents?
indeed. Yes.
Yes.
Sure.
That's what we're trying
Part
to
of
do
the-
right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. This is just
So
the
it's
beginning of that.
75% of those voting,
Voting.
not 75% of the property owners?
No.
Exactly. Those voting.
Those voting.
Okay.
Amanda?
A question from the webinar from property owner Paul. Does Sea Pines Resort have assurances that their plan to expand the number of rooms will result in the resort getting 5 diamond status?
It better.
Right.
No, we understand all of the standards and the requirements, and we currently are falling a little short with our current facility, and that's really what's prompted this this development. So yes.
Mike one.
Yeah, this is Dennis Meyer, Oyster Landing Lane. It's more of a comment. There's a well-known expression that says, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." And there's no doubt, in my mind at least, this agreement may not be perfect, but it's for the benefit of the Sea Pines community as a whole. It is very, very good. And it would be hard to imagine that we'd turn down a $100 million improvement to our community as a whole in order to try to perfect this deal any more than we can. In any negotiating session, there's never a perfection. There's always a give and take, and there are some provisions I know that could be improved, but the deal, the idea in making a negotiation is that both sides give, and I think that the community as a whole is far better for what is on the table right now. To the extent you can improve it, that's wonderful, but the deal is pretty darn good as it stands.
Thank you.
Okay, so now you, if your question wasn't addressed, or if you have additional questions, comment cards will be available when you leave. And also there are term sheets too, if you want to see copies of the actual term sheet and share it with other people.
Barry, I have a comment I want to make before everybody bails out.
Go ahead.
What we're talking about here is a proposition which has been discussed and negotiated between ASPO, CSA, and the resort. The resort has other options. So if we turn this deal down, the resort will pursue other options which they have available to them without referendum. They have to. They don't have an investment in this property to walk away from it if this thing fails. And I say that because I'm a resident like you, and I feel the pain of the various questions that come forward. As being responsible for the negotiation on ASPO's part, I want to do the right thing. I want to do what you want me to do, but there are practical limits as to what we can actually achieve. So I've been a CEO of a major corporation. I've been involved in major discussions. I'm not a novice to this process, and I've done my best to try and get to where we are today. I hope you can accept that at some point in time when it comes to voting on this. But I warn you that if you vote no, this thing goes in the toilet. And when it goes in the toilet, we have seen in this plantation things go in the toilet in the past with the bankruptcy, and we knew what that did. Part of the reason that one speaker had a decline in the real estate value wasn't just the market and the economy, it was the fact that Sea Pines was headed in the wrong direction. Riverstone is a family-owned group with a long vision. They're here to try and meet the same goals that we have of a good place to live and a better place to live. I hope that we can work together with them. I'm not their enemy, and I'm not their employee. I'm a resident like you, and I believe that this is the right thing to do. And I am really afraid for my future here, if this fails, what the consequences of that would be. Because they're not going to come back to the table and say, oh, okay, well, we'll give you this or we'll give you that. The reason they have to do this now is they have a planning process that's going forward. Their planning process is based on starting construction in a year or two. They need to know what they're planning for. If we're telling them that they're not going to be able to plan for this, they're going to have to plan for something else, which doesn't require a referendum. And in the process, all these things that we've achieved are left behind. And I would hate to see that. I think that would be a tragedy for this plantation.
Which, and Charlie, I'm glad you mentioned that. Is why I know it's coming across perhaps some of my comments was somewhat a level of arrogance, but I want you to understand where these rights lie with things like swimming pools. If this goes poorly and it doesn't succeed, those tennis courts are their tennis courts. Those pool is their pool. Not only will we not get this package, we'll have no cooperation, and we will have nothing, no rights to any of that. So I just, as Charlie said, you know, please look at this in the big picture, and where should we go into the future? Thanks.
I want to thank all of you for the participation, not only you, but the morning group and the people on the webinar. Obviously, the interest level is very high on all this, and that's great. I mean, all of us really want this community to become the reason why we live here. So thanks so much, and there will be a series of other meetings that will take place throughout the summer prior to the actual voting process. Thanks so much. Enjoy your evening. Bye.